Grand Rising this glorious, beautiful day. Someone reached out to me with a video request. Somebody asked me if I could do a video on the topic of Amalek in regard to the Qliphoth. Okay. So since someone reached out to me with a request to make this video, I went and did some research of my own on this topic. I like to do some digging. I like to draw the parallels. I found some interesting things. So, did a little bit of researching, connected some dots, and let's get into it. Now, let's start out with the Bible, Old Testament. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 3, it says, "Now go attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, and their livestock." It says to wipe out their livestock too. Right, so right there we see the demiurge Yahweh, God of the Old Testament, the biblical God, commanding his people, the Israelites, to totally annihilate the Amalekite people. And this is interesting because Kabbalah, spelled with a K, is considered a part of esoteric Judaism, which is different than Orthodox Judaism. And what is the sacred book to Judaism? The Torah, the Old Testament, where we read this verse, 1 Samuel 15:3. And also it's interesting here we see in the book of Genesis that Amalek is a descendant of Esau, right? A son of Esau. And this is very interesting because Esau is a brother of Jacob and Jacob is Yaqub. And those who are familiar with the esoteric teachings may be aware of Yaqub being Satan, right? To a regular religious person, that might sound crazy. Like to be like, what do you mean Yaqub is Satan? No, Jacob is the son of Isaac, grandson of Abraham in the book of Genesis. But regular religious people don't understand a whole lot of things. Those who are familiar with the esoteric teachings may know about the fact that Yaqub is actually Satan. All of this is encoded symbolically, so there's a lot of deep dives you can do with this. There's a lot of deep rabbit holes you can go in with as far as the symbolism of Yaqub, Jacob, Esau, and then going into Amalek's bloodline. That's a whole other video I could do. And the Qliphoth is considered the shadow of the Kabbalah or the roots of the Kabbalah, depending on the interpretation. There's different interpretations of it. And so we see right here that the demiurge, in this sense, representing Kabbalah, is pointing out to wipe out the Amalekites. And that's why I want to draw some parallels between the Amalekites and the Qliphoth, because the Qliphoth being the inversion of the Kabbalah, and Kabbalah being a representation of esoteric Judaism, and the God of Judaism commanding the Israelites to wipe out the Amalekites. So let's dive deep into it. Now, according to Rashi, the Amalekites were sorcerers who could transform themselves to resemble animals in order to avoid capture. Thus, in 1 Samuel 15:3, it was considered necessary to destroy the livestock when destroying the Amalekites, because the Amalekites were believed to be animalistic, similar to werewolves. They could take on animal form, so that's why the Israelites were told to wipe out their entire livestock. This draws parallel to vampirism, as vampirism is dealing with shape-shifting, and vampires are known to take on animalistic forms throughout the mythology. So there's a parallel right there. This etymology is on Wikipedia. Most scholars regard the origin of the term Amalek to be unknown, but in some rabbinical interpretations it is etymologized as Amlak, which means the people who lick blood, right? So in the etymology of the word Amlak, it suggests vampires, the people who lick blood. So they are the vampire race. And doing a little bit of deeper digging, I pulled up a couple of websites here, and I will post the links to these websites here in the description of the video, so you can browse these websites and look at this information for yourself. But what it talks about is Lilith being the mother of vampires. Lilith being the mother of the vampire race. That basically the vampire race are Lilith's brood. So when dealing with the vampiric people, we're dealing with Lilith's seed, Lilith's offspring. Then there's also the classic religious interpretation that the serpent in the garden is Lilith. And there's that verse that says that, if I remember the verse correctly, the demiurge says that Eve's seed will step on the head of the serpent, and the serpent's seed will sting the feet of Eve's seed. So based on this interpretation that the serpent in the garden is Lilith, there's this animosity or enmity between the descendants of Eve and the descendants of Lilith. And so what I'm doing is I'm drawing parallels with Lilith being the mother of the vampire race and therefore being enemies of the demiurge being the biblical god. And there's many more parallels you can draw with this. Like, this is a deep rabbit hole you can go down. But just to check out these websites here, they give some details on how Lilith became the mother of vampires. So this makes it safe to conclude that the vampire race are Lilith's seed. According to this interpretation, all of this is mythology. You know, you got to draw your own parallels. You got to find out for yourself by doing your own research where these dots connect and what these things mean. But it's safe to conclude that the vampire race is the seed of Lilith that will sting the foot or the feet of Eve's seed. And it says Eve's seed will step on their heads. Something like that. You know, this is biblical scripture we're talking about here. So we're talking about the Amalekites. They are Lilith's brood. And yeah, don't just take my word for it. You can go do a lot of this research for yourself. So when dealing with vampirism, we're dealing with Amalekitism, right? And the Qliphoth is, like I said, the inversion of the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah represents esoteric Judaism. Kabbalah spelled with a K. Spelled with a Q is the Hermetic Kabbalah, a little bit different, but they're all more or less the same. But this just points out that when you read about the Qliphoth, when you get into studying the Qliphoth, you'll see that Lilith opens the door for the Qliphoth, right? So this would make sense that if Lilith's brood are vampires, as the research shows here, then the Qliphoth represents vampirism because the Qliphoth represents her domain, her offspring. If you study the book Tree of Qliphoth by Temple of Ascending Flame, you'll see that the Qliphoth begins with Lilith. She opens the door. She's the gateway to the Qliphoth, right? And we see that the demiurge, the biblical god, is saying, wipe out the people of the Qliphoth. Because in Judaism, they hearken to the other side, the Kabbalah, right? The demiurge wants them to wipe out Lilith's side, which is the Qliphoth. And that would be parallel to the Amalekites, the vampire race, as the mythology shows according to some interpretations explained by some of these Jewish rabbis here. Now let's talk about the movie The Lost Boys and how this movie pertains to Qliphoth initiation. And the reason I bring this movie up is because not only is it one of the greatest vampire movies of all time, but it also has some good esoteric symbolism in it. In this movie, The Lost Boys, the character Michael, who is becoming a vampire, is actually on a journey of Qliphoth initiation, when you look at it from a symbolic viewpoint, of course. So the movie is symbolically showing you what it's like when you become a creature of the night in going through Qliphoth initiation. This movie, The Lost Boys, is about Amalekites, vampires, descendants of Lilith. That's who these people are in this movie. You know, there's a scene in the movie where Sammy is given this comic book titled Destroy All Vampires, which is significant of the Bible verse, 1 Samuel 15:3, where the demiurge commands that all Amalekites be destroyed. And for me personally, growing up in Oakland, California, I used to go to that very beach boardwalk all the time in Santa Cruz, California, which is depicted in the movie The Lost Boys as Santa Carla, but it's really the beach boardwalk of Santa Cruz. You know, it's a significant part of my childhood. So, you know, this movie is sentimental to me because, like, when I was a kid, the beach boardwalk in Santa Cruz, where this movie takes place, is only a few hours drive away. We used to go there like every summer. I used to love to go there when I was a kid, play in the ocean, swim in the water, play on the beach, play the games in the arcade, ride the rides, you know, all of that. So it's like a legendary world famous carnival, the Beach Boardwalk of Santa Cruz, California, where this movie takes place. And last time I went there was a few years ago. I probably want to go visit again. But it's interesting that the carnival sort of symbolizes the illusionary world, because the vampires in this movie, they're masters of illusion. And the head vampire, Max, sorry for the spoiler if you haven't seen the movie, works at a videotape rental store. So that's kind of symbolizes, you know, movies, the illusion that this whole world is a movie in a way, as the Gnostic books teach us. This whole world is transient and illusionary, you know. So it's interesting, like you see parts in the movie when they, you know, again, sorry for the spoilers, when they, you know, turn the rice into maggots, the noodles into worms, or when he's on his motorcycle and they're not even going anywhere, but it looks like they're going somewhere, then he almost falls off the cliff. So it's showing that these vampires can control illusions because they know the whole material world is an illusion. They know this whole earthly realm is an illusion. So the vampires have a higher knowledge of things above what most people know because they've been initiated, and they're in the process of initiating Michael, who is becoming a vampire in this movie. If you haven't seen The Lost Boys, I definitely recommend seeing the movie. It's one of the best vampire movies of all time. And so in The Lost Boys, there's a scene where they're hanging from the bridge, and this is part of Michael's initiation in becoming a vampire, and this scene is very symbolic. See, as they're hanging from the bridge, the train goes by overhead, and David says to Michael, "Michael, you are one of us. Let go." And this is Da'ath initiation. You know, Michael then lets go and falls into the abyss. And this is symbolic of crossing the bridge. That's what the symbolism of the bridge is. The bridge symbolizes crossing over the Da'ath. And when he falls into the fog, into the mist, that's signifying falling, let into the abyss, letting go, falling into the Da'ath. You got to let go. That's the initiation.
Perfect timing. What's going on? Michael wants to know what's going on. Marco, what's going on?
I don't know. What's going on, Paul?
Wait a minute, who wants to know?
Michael wants to know.
I think we should let Michael know what's going on.
Yeah.
Marco?
Good night, Michael.
Bombs away!
Bottoms up, man.
Come with us, Michael.
Hey, Michael!
Michael Emerson!
Yeah!
Come on down!
Welcome aboard, Michael!
Fun, huh?
How do you like it? Don't be scared, Michael!
Michael, you're one of us! Let go!
Do what?
You are one of us, Michael!
Right, so crossing the bridge is crossing the portal of the Da'ath. He's becoming a vampire in this scene. Because in the Qliphoth initiation, when you cross the Da'ath, you become one with the Da'ath. The Da'ath is a black hole. So you thus become a black hole yourself, meaning that you pull in and feed off of other energy, which is the vampire in essence, the feminine energy, the energy of Lilith, the dark feminine energy. That's what you're becoming. That's the energy of the dark womb, because feminine energy is to receive or to attract, whereas masculine energy emits or sends forth. And so you take on the vampire energy, which is the feminine energy, because a womb receives life. It receives light, which is a seed. That's what a womb receives, right? And the seed is light because the seed bears consciousness. The consciousness is light, right? And so the dark womb, which is the black hole, receives light. It pulls the light in and inverts it or transforms it into something else. Just like when the seed goes into the womb, it dies to what it previously was and then is transformed into a fetus. It becomes something else. And this is what death is. It's a change. It's a transformation. It's not what we've been programmed to see it as, right? So the vampire energy is to feed off of other energy. It's to feed on light. So you then become a living, breathing black hole yourself when you go through this initiation, pulling energy in that you feed off of when you cross the Da'ath, right? Therefore, the Qliphoth initiation actually makes you into a vampire, not the kind of fictional vampire that you see in movies. That's only symbolic, you know, but what you become is a living, walking being that feeds on other energy, right? So you become, in essence, a black hole of a sort, you know, which pulls energy in. Your heart field becomes reversed. This is why one of the most known ways to kill a vampire is by driving a stake through the vampire's heart. Because the heart is the vampire's strength. The heart is the vampire's energy field. When your heart becomes inverted, when your heart field becomes reversed, having crossed the Da'ath and the Qliphoth initiation, your heart is your black hole energy, which pulls light in. This is how you feed off of other life forms, is through the heart's energy field. And now it's like everywhere you go in life, you're going to be taking energy in. This is your nature now. You now carry this resonance with you. And that's what a vampire truly is. It's not what it is in movies or mythology, right? So now that you've crossed the Da'ath, you naturally attract. You naturally pull energy in. You become the essence of a dark womb, which is what a black hole is. You know, and what goes into the abyss, what goes into the black hole dies to what it previously was and then is turned into something new. Just like when you eat food, your mouth is a black hole and your stomach is a dark abyss, right? And when you eat food, you're putting life into your mouth and it's dying, meaning it's transforming, and it's going to come out as something else that from death gives new life, that becomes new life again. I explained a lot of this in my other video I did on the Qliphoth, and in the video we did on Nosferatu, and in the other video we did about what happens to the spirit at death, how the spirit actually goes on. A lot of this science of vampirism is broken down and explained in those videos we did. And so falling into the abyss is embracing the Da'ath. You got to be able to let go. You got to detach from the ego. You got to be able to successfully let go to cross the abyss. This is what the initiation is. It's being able to let go of the baggage of the ego. It's kind of like the science of being able to not give a fuck, to just be able to let it all go. That's why he lets go and falls from the bridge into the Da'ath in the movie when Michael is becoming a vampire. He's becoming one with the abyss. So in this scene in the movie, when Michael lets go and falls into the fog, it's symbolic of his initiation in becoming a vampire. This is a Qliphoth initiation. He's becoming a creature of the night. And in this scene of the movie, you'll notice when you're doing your Qliphoth initiation, these dark beings will say to you exactly what David says to Michael. David, who is played by Kiefer Sutherland, says to Michael, who's played by Jason Patrick. He says, "You are one of us, let go." That's what they're going to say to you. You're going to experience this. When you're doing your Qliphoth initiation, you're going to hear these beings pretty much say that to you. They're going to tell you, you're one of us now, let go. You got to embrace death. You got to embrace change and transformation, right? You can't be looking at it from the mentality of how Western civilization or Western society has molded us into looking at it as something negative that you got to stay away from or shun, that kind of thing. So later on in the movie, there's a scene where Michael sees the vampire gang hunt a group of people who are partaking in a beach party. They're sitting at a bonfire, you know, and he sees the vampires just devour their prey. You know, it's very gory. There's blood everywhere. And then David says to Michael, now you know what we are. Now you know what you are. You'll never grow old, Michael, and you'll never die, but you must feed.
So, now you know what we are. Now you know what you are. You'll never grow old, Michael. And you'll never die. But you must feed.
And so let's build on this. Why does he say you'll never grow old and you'll never die, right? Because vampires are called the undead. The undead. Because when you cross the Da'ath, you become dead to the previous human ego self. That previous ego that you once were dies, and this is the real death. Death is not even what we've been conditioned to think it is. It's a change, it's a transformation, right? After crossing the Da'ath, now you're walking around alive, yet also having died. You are thus undead, right? Because you let go of the ego when you cross the abyss, when you fall into that black hole. Your heart's energy field becomes that of a black hole, which takes energy in. This energy field continues on long after the body decomposes. Thus, you never grow old and you never die because you no longer identify with the physical vessel, which is the ego. You've now become a black hole, consuming. What you have now become will continue on forever, long after the physical body. Because now that you've done the Qliphoth initiation, you've created an eternal vortex, right? It gathers in motion, it gathers in energy, and it's going to keep pulling light in and keep pulling energy in long after the physical vessel decomposes, right? Thus, you become undead. You'll never grow old and you'll never die, but you must feed. See The Lost Boys if you haven't seen it. Great movie. You know, in the new Nosferatu movie from Nosferatu 2024, he tells her, I am an appetite. That's what he is. He's her appetite. He's her dark side, but the appetite can be overwhelming in the initiation because the ego wants to remain grounded on that clay, you know, that earth, right? Like in the Lost Boys movie when they were hanging from the bridge, you know, Michael tried to pull himself back up. He tried to turn back. You know, the bridge that they're hanging from represents crossing the Da'ath. So, you know, he says to him, you are one of us, let go, you know? That's what you got to be able to do when you're doing this initiation. You got to be able to let go. And here's why I say, like, Hollywood will give you a lot of truth. A lot of movies have a lot of truth, but you also got to be careful with Hollywood because Hollywood will throw little things in there to hide it from you, to keep you away from your true power. Like, for example, the movie is called The Lost Boys. But no, the Qliphoth will actually help you find yourself. You know, when you do shadow work, it heals you. You know, you will actually find your true self. And see, you're going to become what you make yourself based upon what you decide you are, based upon what you see yourself as. It is done unto you according to your perspective. The energy will attract to what it identifies as. Like, I believe there's a verse in the Bible somewhere that says something like, that which a man says he is, he is. What you declare yourself to be, that is what you're going to give your energy to, and that is what your energy will become, even after the body decomposes, right? So doing shadow work can heal you. You know, you won't be lost doing the Qliphoth. I'm advertising the Qliphoth. Come into the initiation, do it. Do your shadow work. Get to know that dark side of yourself. It will heal you. You know, I found my own internal self. My legal name is CAFCL, right? And Caphsiel means angel of death. I am the angel of death. That's who I am. But I want to make something clear. I'm not saying that I'm the one and only angel of death upon the earth. I'm not saying that the angel of death is only me standing right here in front of you on this video, you know. And no, there are many of us out there who are the angel of death. I'm just one expression of it. It's just what my name means, you know. But, you know, when you do the Qliphoth initiation and do your shadow work, you'll find your true inner self. You know, I'm the angel of death, and you can too. Do the Qliphoth initiation. Go through it. You know, it's not going to hurt. I mean, it might hurt, but, you know, you'll ultimately be all right. You got to overcome that fear, you know. Be of the Amalekites. Be one of us. Be the angel of death. Find that inner spot. Find that identity. It's very powerful, you know. I mean, if you look at my video I did about Kali Ma, the Dark Mother, the Divine Feminine, you know, I explained a lot of this science in there, that death is actually love. So since the Qliphoth is called the tree of death, the Qliphoth is really the tree of love, because love is change and transformation, right? That's what true love is, change and transformation, which is death. Embrace the change and the transformation, embrace the love, you know. True love is change and transformation. So I am the angel of love. I am the angel of change and transformation. Love, change, transformation, death, these things are all one and the same thing. These are just 4 different words I just said to describe the exact same thing. And love will heal you. Change and transformation will heal you. Like when you heal yourself from an illness, the illness died. That's why they call it a pain killer or a disease killer. See, so death isn't what we've been conditioned to think it is. They've been conditioning us to think it's a bad thing to keep us away from the potential of our own power. Heal yourself with the Qliphoth. Heal yourself with change and transformation. Heal yourself with love. Where do you think you're going to go when you die? To complete unconditional love. That's where you're going to go.
I guess the point that I'm trying to make is I'm someone who have said that I've never seen a miracle ever before. I've never asked to see a miracle, but I've always said, growing up watching Benny Hinn and all them, I've never seen a miracle before. I've seen a lot of death. I consider myself the angel of death. And that's why I don't like to make friends with anyone. If you come into my life, either you're passing or someone really close to you is passing. And it's my job to help them into the afterlife. But on the course of this journey, I have witnessed stage 4 cancer start to regress. And that taught me something about healing and the miracle in that healing is absolutely possible. Even if it comes from you, healing is possible. And sometimes to get your healing, if you're healing yourself from something like septic shock, you need to isolate from people, especially family. Because if it looks bleak and it looks bad, they're gonna count you out. And every time they count you out and count you down, it's a peg down on your energy. It's gonna keep knocking you out and knocking you down. You might wake up by yourself and you might start crying, realizing that you're dying by yourself. You're all alone. Don't feel bad. Immediately start to encourage yourself and encourage your heart. Say, I got this, I got this, I got this. It don't matter how much you cry. It don't matter how much you scream. And it don't matter how mean you are to people, as long as you're good to yourself. Love yourself and love on yourself. Tell yourself all the time, I got this, I got this. I don't need nobody else, I'm strong. I got this, I got this. Scream if you have to. Hold yourself. Love yourself, because that's what it is. It's gonna heal you. It's love. And when people withdraw their love from you, they're withdrawing life from you. So if nobody's sowing life into you, they're sowing death. So if you're going through any type of illness, any type of disease or sickness, you have to start sowing love into yourself immediately. Sometimes people are older in age, and it is their time to pass. You have to let those individuals go. Sometimes things happen to people and it's not their time. And you can make the difference by saving their lives, by how much love you sow into them. I've seen it done, I've done it, and I've done it for myself. I am a miracle.